This is episode 2. I'm a senior student at the British School of Tashkent and I'm trying to develop my skills of rhetoric, just like all of you guys. Little lady, she was this very sweet Indian woman, right? And of course, having a big smile on my face. Why are they forcing me to learn this? I don't need it in my life. Past simple, present simple, all of that extremely boring stuff. Was she a little, plus-sized little Indian lady by any chance? Literally, am I doing bad? Am I doing good? Am I speaking too fast, too slow? You don't know. Oh, I also remember this one girl, Aidan. They are on B. You pretend that you know what you're doing, and at one point you're gonna know exactly what you're doing and become proficient at it. I'm bigger. I'm better. I am better. Ciao for now. Nice. Very good. That was very good, bro. Greetings, dear viewers. It's of the utmost pleasure to be seeing you guys join us for this little podcast of ours today. This is episode 2, numero dos, of our English podcast with my dear friend, Robert. Robert, you probably have already seen the previous podcast, the episode 1. I'm a senior student at the British School of Tashkent and I'm trying to develop my skills of rhetoric, just like all of you guys. My IELTS score should be up in 2 days. It's probably going to be on the screen. I was born in Uzbekistan, was raised here, learned my English skills here, and I'm happy to be invited today. Thank you very much. Yeah, of course, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Now, guys, today for this episode of our podcast, we would actually like to, have a very deep dive into the details, into our, personal lives, because, at the end of the day, we both speak like native speakers do, with American accents, etc., right? So we will be discussing how did we get to this level, and we're also towards, the conclusion. We're going to be giving tips how you, the viewers, will be getting to such a level, right? So without further ado, let me begin, right? So, as you guys might or might not know, my name is Firuzbek Gulomov, right? I'm 17 years old. I turned 17 recently on the 3rd of October. And last year, I got my IELTS band score of, 8.5. It should probably be on the screen right now. And I got my speaking, which is 9. So, as most people know in Uzbekistan, right, getting a 9 from speaking, right, let alone in Uzbekistan, is extremely difficult. And I want to give a few highlights from the IELTS itself, right, before we commence. I remember that when I was, I had the computer-based IELTS exam, right? So I was going not face-to-face, but on Zoom through a laptop with this little lady. She was this very sweet Indian woman, right? And I remember she was giving me these different questions for part 1, part 2. Part 2 was, if memory serves me right, it was discuss an argument that you had with one of your friends. It was one of those typical part 2 questions. And I aced it. Personally, I really believe that I did a magnificent job, used the best, most academically challenging and adverse vocabulary that I could. And for part 3, the series of questions that come back to back that build up upon one another, was also an interesting way of, kind of gimmicking some sort of comical humor into my speech, making strong points, and of course having a big smile on my face. Personally, I believe that really entertaining and, making sure that the examiner that is sitting across from you really hears your points and really has a good time doing so is very important when getting your band score, right? So the highlight of my IELTS examination was most definitely when, towards the end, after she finished, she said that the IELTS speaking part is over, and we went further on. We started just talking out of topic, right? We were just discussing our daily lives, right? So we literally connected from one human to another, right? So she said that I'm pretty sure she has a son, and I looked like that Indian son, and I was like, Thank you. Appreciate that. Right. So it was really fun, right? So you really know whether your band score is going to be high or low, depending on the facial reactions of the examiner, of the environment, of how it's going, and of course of how you generally answer the questions, right? And now, how exactly did I come to learn English so proficiently? So as you guys might know, I was raised in the Netherlands, Holland, so that's in Europe, right? That's a coastal area. It's got beaches, greenery, everything. And I attended the International School of The Hague, which is one of the most prestigious schools in the Netherlands. It's a private school. It had truly phenomenal education. I learned everything ranging from mathematics to physics to biology to anatomy, right? So all of that is being placed upon to the younger generation, and that's advancing us both in a literal aspect and in somewhat of a spiritual aspect, right? So now, Robert, I would really like you to tell the viewers who you are, how do you know English, and really elaborate on this.
So, as I mentioned before, I'm a senior student at the British School of Tashkent. I'm 17 years old. My story of English starts at around age of 8 or 9. Where my parents brought me to group lessons after school. At that moment, I absolutely despised it. I'm tired from school, just like every other student, just like every other classmate that I had. I just want to go home, play some computer games, play with my toys, and not care less about English. At that point, I didn't understand, why are they forcing me to learn this? I don't need it in my life. At least I thought that way. But obviously, as we see now, that is one of my keys to success. That is one of the things that is going to lead me to a more successful life. That is my key to go to the West, to make myself a better person.
Now, when you say West, you mean literal West, not Westminster, right?
Not Westminster, preferably not.
Okay.
I'm planning to go to America and England. I'm applying to both currently. And after that, after working in those group lessons for around 2 years, I got tired of drawing tigers on my paper and naming it a tiger. So I overgrew it, let's call it that. At that point, my parents got me a private tutor where I actually started learning grammar, past simple, present simple, all of that extremely boring stuff that you have to work on for 2 hours per day. You have to do those long exercises and put articles in every single spot.
Oh yeah.
And especially when you miss one single thing and you have to redo the entire exercise. That was absolutely awful.
Concoction, yeah. Damn.
So you kind of work for 2 hours a day doing your English, and then you exercise with your private tutor for 1 hour a day. That is obviously extremely difficult, especially for a child that does not understand why he does this in the first place. However, by the age of 12 to 13, my parents were actually able to explain to me properly why I'm doing this. They showed me what opportunities learning English gives me. And that's where I actually became more motivated to work on my English skills. At that exact moment, they found me a new private tutor from Britain. She worked offline, so every day I had to drive to her 1 hour. She lived on the opposite side of the city. And Maria Yakovlevna, first of all, big appreciations to her. She taught me most of the proficient and developed English skills that I know currently. And after that, I started working with a different teacher that started preparing me for the exams. So IELTS, TOEFL, SAT. Currently, I'm still working with her, Lyudmila Rumyantsova. Thank you very much again. And right now, having been through the entire path, I understand why my parents put me on that path in the first place. So if your parents give you an opportunity to work in group classes, to work with private tutors, big appreciation to them, big appreciation to my parents for allowing me to do it, for forcing me to do it. And I'm glad that I've went all this way to become pretty much a native speaker, I would say, to some degree. And the opportunities that it provides me in my life are absolutely phenomenal. And coming back to the point that you made regarding your IELTS, I would not necessarily agree that the reaction of your examiner tells you a lot, since I've actually had quite an, let's call, unlucky case, as the lady that was my examiner
Was she a little, plus sized little Indian lady by any chance?
I'm pretty sure she was of Indian ethnicity, but I would not say plus size.
Ah, okay.
So the entire examination, from the moment I walk in, she looks at me like,
oh, the stone face. That's a killer. That's a killer. Oh my God.
I keep talking. And like when she keeps the stone face, you don't necessarily know if you're past the time limit. So you have 30 seconds for question one, for example.
Yeah.
You're not counting the seconds in your head, and you're looking at her. She's like looking at you with a straight face, and then like, should I stop? Should I go on? What do I do now?
I can completely understand that confusion. Well, to that regard, right?
Unlucky.
That's just unlucky. If your examiner is literally, like, hold on, Toby Maguire in front of the mirror, face revealing himself, that's going to be very unfortunate. Because you don't know how well you're doing, right? So you don't have that factor of, mental strength and fortitude, right? Because you're like, am I doing bad? Am I doing good? Am I speaking too fast, too slow? You don't know. You have no idea. And the second part is, part B, is that, of course, you don't know the time limitations. You don't know if you have to speak longer or
You're done. It's 30 minutes since you're done.
Yeah, that's it. So it's very difficult. I can really understand to that regard, right? So that kind of thing happens. My guy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, guys. This is episode 2, right? So in a few days, his IELTS exam should be coming out. Fingers crossed, 8.0 plus. 8.5, that's gonna be my man. 9.0,
that would be pretty good.
9.0, and we're buying him a new car.
Sounds good, but I never heard of anyone getting 9.0 in Uzbekistan, but...
اوكي ماشي جايين خازر ودلت خلع. All right, let's end. Yeah, well, sustaining and getting that IELTS 9.0 in Uzbekistan isn't necessarily it's not necessarily commonplace in Uzbekistan. It doesn't happen every day. Personally, I don't know anyone that has gotten a 9.0 from IELTS that truly deserves it.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, all right. But anyhow, let's move further. Now, Robert, let me tell you a little bit about my own personal challenges that I had with English, growing up in the Netherlands. So, in the Netherlands, of course, yeah, it's cool and all. People are Dutch, they speak Dutch. However, to some degree, they're a little agitated. You know how in Uzbekistan, when Russians come to some of our more Uzbek friends, right? They say you should be speaking in Uzbek. You're living in Uzbekistan. Speak the language, right? Well, potato, same thing happens in the Netherlands, right? If some people are particularly petty, right? Then they simply won't even answer you unless you start, saying waarom, hoe gaat het, right? So like, unless you start the dialogue, continue it in Dutch. So essentially, the main problem for like a child studying at an international school, right, was that my Dutch skills until a certain age weren't particularly developed, and it was a little hard for me to diversify my social life outside of school. And I also remember this one girl, Aidan. She was lovely. She was from Azerbaijan, if I'm not mistaken. I was like around about 11 years old. You surely know that story. She really enjoyed spending time with me, and she spoke Russian. Yeah, that girl was really fun to be around. And the highlight of this story was whenever we would speak Russian together, right? The other children, the other kids, the Dutch ones, the Indian ones, the Asian kids, because it was an international school, not necessarily understand what we were talking about, right? And we always, used to joke around a little bit. I would bully her a little bit. She would bully me a little bit. Fun and games, simple shenanigans. However, it was still really fun to see the fact that the other students didn't understand us, and that was the very first time I actually, understood. How should I say this? Cultural diversity, because we have to keep in mind that I literally didn't know Russian, right? Like I could just compound a few words and say da, хорошо, right? I only started learning Russian properly when I came to Uzbekistan, and thank you Oksana, shameless plug. She was my tutor. We were working basically every single day to learn Russian, and my Uzbek tutors, whatnot, I personally recommend to go to any bazaar, right? Ask for an item and then just decrease the price to like by half, and then start.
And then you learn all the swearing words.
And not only do you learn all the swearing words, but you also learn all the necessary vocabulary that you need to socialize in our more conservative, fashion, if we can say that, right? So what kind of challenges did you face? I talked about Aidan, great girl. What kind of challenges did you face?
Well, you see, at one point, again at around age 14, 15, when my English was already on a decently good level, I did not have the key to speaking English, which is confidence.
Oh, that is a killer.
For most of you listeners, watchers, viewers, it is the biggest problem as well. And there was only one solution to it: working through it, suffering through it. So I have my cousins who live in Austria. I have my another cousin who was proficient in English by that time. And every single day when coming back from my IELTS lessons, when sitting down at a PC and playing some computer games, we would only speak English.
Oh, that's great.
I was awful at it. I was absolutely awful at it. My accent was completely Russian, so it felt like I was speaking Russian but with English words. And some call-outs in games were unclear because of that. Some funny situations happened. But as the time went on, like half a year later, we understood that we're actually more comfortable speaking English now, surprisingly. And to this day, when talking on the phone, we only use English as the main language. Since we practiced it so much, it became more comfortable for us to speak in English rather than in Russian. And another part of that is sitting on Omegle, sitting on chat roulette, putting some America or some European countries, and trying to talk to these native speakers when they do not want to talk with you. So they are not necessarily enjoying your company and your accent, but you're still forcing yourself to work through it, to try to elaborate the conversation, to try to discuss different topics. For example, ask them about their lives, the same way you do in your English classes. And I feel like these two aspects are something that gives you that confidence. But again, the only way to reach that confidence is pretending you're confident.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Sitting online, you pretend you're confident in your English skills. You're like, they are on B. While sounding completely foolish, you pretend that you know what you're doing, and at one point you're gonna know exactly what you're doing and become proficient at it.
Yeah.
So pretending you're confident, pretending that you're good at it, is something that's gonna make you good at it. And this is the approach that I keep in my life as well.
Exactly, it's all in your mind. Yeah, it's all in your mind.
When you're acting on the scene, you should be confident. You're like, this is my character, and I'm 100% confident that I can play this character well.
Exactly, you have to think, I'm bigger, I'm better, I am better. Right?
You do it, and with time, with practice, having done this scene 10, 20 times, you're actually going to become good at what you intended to do. And having that intention of working on yourself, having that intention of learning something new is something that pushes you not only in English, but in life in general.
Wow, exactly. I can completely and unequivocally agree with Robert. I couldn't side with someone more because at the end of the day, it really comes down to being bigger, to being better, no, it's really as forward as it sounds, right? So as soon as you really understand it, and as soon as you can like personally comprehend what you're doing with your life, right? What you're doing with English, how it's going to ameliorate your skills, how it's going to ameliorate your social skills, right? How it's going to help you academically in your career. All of these little factors, you know, they sum up, they constitute for a bigger and better life, right? It's gonna help you. It's most definitely one of the most important factors of why everyone today is learning English is because it's an international language, guys. Like today, everyone should know how to at least speak a little bit. I know that, of course, here in Uzbekistan, it's not as prevalent for everyone to speak English. However, today, me and Robert, we spent, the last portion of an hour trying to help and encourage our viewers, to adapt, to persevere, to be more inclined to the English language, right? We always try to have a very open mind because we know the level of diversity that we have in our viewers. Some of them, are just beginners to English. Some of them are veterans to IELTS. They've been doing this for several years trying to get a higher and higher band score, right? And all that we can say is cheers to that, because you, our dear viewer, by watching this podcast have, you've simply upgraded, you've simply uplifted your own knowledge, your own vocabulary, your own exposure to the English language, and had a little bit of fun doing so. Now, just to wrap this up, it was extremely fun conducting the second episode of our podcast where we talked about the little struggles that we had with the English language. And Robert, again, thank you very much for sitting here telling me about your issues and for hearing me out as well. It was very fun. We truly hope that the viewers back home enjoyed it as much as we did. Be sure to leave a like, comment down below what you guys thought about this. Tell us a little bit about your own problems that you guys had with learning the English language. And that's it for today. Ciao for now. Nice, very good. That was very good, bro.